Can't believe this story. It certainly must be fake news. The leash is off. Abortion activists behind attacks on pro-lifers issue new threats, urge others to burn. I just can't believe it. The left being violent? It's the far right, according to the January 6th committee. And all of these Democrats keep telling me that the far right is the dangerous element we have to be scared about because they want civil war. The reality is, that's mostly a bit. The reality is the leash is off, they say. They've already attacked 17 pro-life pregnancy centers. They're planning to attack more. And it's just absolutely insane. I think the story about 17 anti-abortion centers getting firebombed, it shows you what their real intention is with their politics and with the violence. I do not believe that these people are simply pro-choice. We have another story here. I want to show you this. Kavanaugh neighbor describes horrific experience dealing with aggressive pro-choice protesters. They're not pro-choice, they're pro-abortion. When you have pregnancy centers, and what is their intended mission? To give resources to expecting mothers who can't afford it. When you have that, and they firebomb it, all that does is make it more difficult for expecting mothers who are struggling to have a child. That doesn't stop, or I suppose it would push women towards abortion. Isn't that weird? Why would you want to do that? If a woman wants to have a kid, she wants to have a kid. See, that's the point. The existence, in my opinion, of pro-life pregnancy centers does not inhibit a woman from getting an abortion if she wants one. So why attack them? Why go out in front of Kavanaugh's house and terrorize his neighbors? Why threaten to kill Kavanaugh himself? Try to. We have another story here. The California man indicted on one count of attempting to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. This is the reality of what's going on politically. The Daily Caller reports a statement that appears to be from the violent pro-abortion group Jane's Revenge was posted online Tuesday saying the leash is off. I thought the leash was already off because 17 pregnancy centers had been attacked. Sure. The leash is off for attacks on pro-life operations and declaring violence until pro-life groups shut down. The statement was posted to a website appearing to belong to the group and promised violent attacks on pro-life organizations such as crisis pregnancy centers. Quote, "We promise to take increasingly drastic measures against oppressive infrastructures. Rest assured that we will. And those measures may not come in the form of something so easily cleaned up as fire and graffiti. Sometimes you will see what we do and you will know that it is us. Sometimes you will think you merely are unlucky because you cannot see the ways which we interfere in your affairs." Jane's Revenge appeared to take credit for a Molotov cocktail attack on the offices of Wisconsin Family Action in May. Numerous other pregnancy centers have been attacked, including the Capitol Hill Pregnancy Center, which was recently vandalized in June with Jane Says Revenge spray painted on the building. Of course, now, quote, "Our recourse now is to defend ourselves." I love how they're saying that. "And to build robust, caring communities of mutual aid so that we may heal ourselves without the need of the medical industry or any other intermediary. Through attacking, we find joy, courage, and strip the veneer of impenetrability held by these violent institutions. They're defending themselves by setting fire to pregnancy centers. These people are evil, period." Another pregnancy center was vandalized with the words "Jane's Revenge" and, quote, "If abortion isn't safe, you aren't either." Why? Why are you attacking an organization that's simply helping impoverished mothers get resources? Amazing. They say Oregon Right to Life, a pro-life organization in Salem, Oregon, was attacked with Molotov cocktails last month. Oh, you know what? I just got to say, fine. You want to play this game? I'm telling you, this is bad for you. Violence does not help your cause, period. I mean, you take a look at how people feel about Donald Trump and January 6th, and although many are just completely over it or don't care, the reality here is that this will scare people. We saw it after the Black Lives Matter riots. We're going to see it now. The statement comes after the group apparently posted a statement to abolition media on May 12th, calling for pro-life groups to close their doors within the next 30 days, citing low patience and mercy for groups attempting to take away what little autonomy they have left. The group also posted a statement following the vandalization of several pro-life churches in Olympia, Washington, saying it's easy and fun to attack. The Department of Justice did not immediately respond to the Daily Caller News Foundation's request for comment. They're going to mention it's been updated to include the fact that Jane's Revenge appeared to post a statement containing threats to pro-life groups on its own website. There you go. So here's where we are now. Kavanaugh neighbor describes horrific experience dealing with aggressive pro-choice protesters. They're not pro-choice, they're pro-abortion. Call them pro-death, call them whatever you want. Pro-choice is like, look, if you want to go to a pregnancy center and get support, you do your thing. If you need to get an abortion within a certain time frame, you do your thing. But pro-choice always had limitations. It always did. Today, they claim to be pro-choice, but they're substantially more extreme than the pro-choice ever was. So I don't think that's fair to call them pro-choice. Fox News reports, a neighbor of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh says the pro-choice protesters who have marched multiple times a week down their street in the evening have shaken up residents' homes and disrupted their lives as they detailed the alleged abuse received by neighbors from protesters while saying authorities have done little to help them. The neighbor, who spoke to Fox News Digital on condition of anonymity, said that while there had been intermittent protests before, they picked up after the leak of the draft court opinion that would overturn the Roe v. Wade abortion ruling. And Casey, let's not forget Casey. The neighbor said that it was overwhelmingly people from outside the area who were organizing the protests, not people from the area, and specified how it was both a regular occurrence and organized. They are people who come from out of the area. They have a staging point in a parking lot fairly nearby. Protesters typically appear 2 evenings a week, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and come in the evening around 7 p.m., when many of the local residents are putting their children to bed, a task made difficult when loud protesters are marching up and down the street. See, the interesting thing here is this is illegal. It's outright illegal. And these people want to know why the law isn't being enforced. It's because you live in anarcho-tyranny. But I don't think that's necessarily fair to say. I think it's because you are subject to a violent revolution that doesn't seek to uphold the law because they seek to gain power. That's it. And upholding the law subverts their power. Quote, they say it's not, that's when people are putting their kids to bed. There's little kids who live on the street. It's a horrific experience, the source said. It's not great if you have kids of any age, but it's unbelievably stressful. And the kids are very upset. The kids have to be sent inside, and it's so loud you can't put your kids to sleep. They pick the exact time and they don't care. Literally, there's no way on a Wednesday night you can put your kid to bed. While there are ground rules set by law enforcement, the source said protesters are loud and intimidating, with chants that warn of riots if they don't get what they want. And there have been instances of protesters abusing the neighbors as well. Quote, they have drummers, they have a megaphone, and they chant. They yell all kinds of things. They have told neighbors, F you, F your children, things like that. And so they're abusive towards the neighbors and intimidating. They go in the street. We've been told that because they will move eventually when a car comes down the street, they're not technically blocking the street. The resident notes that there are noise ordinances that limit things like leaf blowers, and yet those ordinances are apparently not followed by the protesters. So where are the police? That is a local issue. What we've also been told is that this is behaving within the bounds of the law, and the only law that could be enforced is the federal law, and they're not supposed to protest outside the home of judicial officers, but the federal partners declined to enforce that law. It's about time you realized there's a revolution taking place, and you are being beaten down. Joe Biden knows, doesn't care. Jen Psaki encouraged illegal activity. They continue to encourage illegal activity, and they're not going to enforce action against what they encourage. The neighbors stressed that the lots are relatively small, meaning the houses are right up near the street where protesters are yelling and chanting. There's nowhere to get away from it, they said. I think people are very concerned that if there isn't action taken, that this will escalate in a way that is very unpredictable and very unsafe. And that's what's so discouraging. That's what's so discouraging is the fact that there just doesn't seem to be anyone in a position of leadership or authority who is considering those issues and acting on them and trying to look for a solution rather than just allowing the possibility to escalate. Considering the threats of violence and the assassination attempt, you would think they would do something about this. Take a look at this. Officials have expressed concern about the security situation related to the leak of a draft opinion. A recent Homeland Security Department report said the draft opinion has unleashed a wave of threats against officials and others and increased the likelihood of extremist violence. That was highlighted on Wednesday when Nicholas John Rosk was arrested early Wednesday near Kavanaugh's house in Maryland after threatening to kill the justice. Police said he was carrying a gun, a knife and zip ties, and a crowbar and other burglar's tools. Some may have expected that the protests would have held off in the wake of the arrest of Rosk, who was later charged with attempted murder of Kavanaugh. But within hours of the arrest, the same evening, the protesters were back. They had a lot of camera crews, obviously, who were here for the news. So they came, they had more drums, more noise. They were very, very loud, very, very aggressive. They dance in the street as well. I mean, it's very unnerving. And there's no consideration given to the neighbors. We're just expected to take it. No. You are the target. They want you to join them out of anger. They want you to cave in and say, if Brett Kavanaugh just does what he's told, they want you as residents to pit yourself against Brett Kavanaugh, to force him to take their side. They want to destroy his community life and his home. We've been told repeatedly, just anecdotally, like in casual conversation, you can't engage with these people. They have no filter. They will have no regard for your personal property or your personal safety, so don't engage with them. So we're basically being told that these people are not safe. It takes away your sense of security. We have no idea who could embed themselves in this group of protesters. The neighbors stressed that no one was blaming Kavanaugh himself for the protests that have descended upon the area. Him and his family are suffering more than the rest of us. Bravo to them, to the people who live here, from resisting the pressures and the terrorism to the best of their abilities. The neighbor also challenged politicians who believe that such protests are fine because they are peaceful and open up their neighborhoods to similar protests and make their addresses available to the public. Let people know and encourage them to come to your neighborhood and do the same to voice their views, because it can't be selective. If right-wingers went to the homes of these federal authorities, they would be arrested on site. They would be arrested instantly. Even with everything we're seeing, 17 anti-abortion centers have been firebombed since last month's leaked Supreme Court. Andrew Barkis, a Republican representing the Olympia in Washington State Legislature, had his Olympia office attacked around 4 a.m. Monday's attack was the 17th so far on a pregnancy support clinic or an office of a pro-life figure. Okay, so it's not just pregnancy centers. It was not clear whether he was deliberately attacked for his beliefs. The same group of people were also seen ransacking a nearby antique center 20 minutes later. I don't know if that's political. Maybe it is. It could be that the antique center was the people who live there are conservative or who work there. 2 masked people were caught on a Ring camera installed outside the building, breaking a window with a hammer and throwing a lit flare into the building. Why would anyone want to live in these areas is beyond me. There were no injuries and no one has claimed responsibility. The Department of Homeland Security also warned last month of the rising risk of violence. Quote, threat actors have recently mobilized to violence due to factors such as personal grievances, reactions to current events, and adherence to violent extremist ideologies, including racially or ethnically motivated or anti-government, anti-authority violent extremism, said a National Terrorism Advisory System bulletin issued on June 7th. Given a high-profile U.S. Supreme Court case on abortion rights, individuals who advocate both for and against abortion have on public forums encouraged violence. You see, this is the problem with the federal government. It is not pro-lifers going around right now committing acts of violence. It's pro-abortionists. Vandalism at pro-life centers since May 2nd. Now, Daily Mail's a little wrong on this. As I already mentioned, it's pro-life figures, it's pro-life affiliated groups, because you have politicians as well. But take a look at this. This is crazy. Well, maybe this one is specifically pro-life centers. You've got Seattle, you've got Salem, you got Eugene, you got Wisconsin, you got Des Moines, you got Buffalo, D.C., Reisterstown, Alexandria, Asheville, Hollywood, Denton, Austin, and Anchorage. So that's 14 different pro-life pregnancy centers. I suppose you then have 3 pro-life figures who are attacked as well. A senior official in the threat alert warned that going forward, we're concerned that grievances related to restricting abortion access in general could fuel a broader response. Last week in Buffalo, New York, attackers spray painted the slogan, "Jane was here, so this we know." Now, out where we are, we're in the tri-state area in Western Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia. There was a pro-life pregnancy center that was heavily vandalized. I believe it was attacked with a firebomb, and we actually had a reporter go there and look at it because it was only a few minutes away. This stuff hits close to home. It was the day that this guy got arrested. I believe it was the morning of. The morning this guy got arrested. Later that night, we received a credible threat here at Timcast and were forced to evacuate the building. Many people keep saying we're getting swatted because they don't know what a swatting is. Now, People, I got to break this down for you. That night, it was a credible threat. We requested the police response. Many of the swattings that we've endured and been subjected to aren't there. After the first swatting at our main property, we had police show up, put your hands in the air. After that, the police respond because we ask them to. People seem to think that the cops keep kicking our door down. No, getting swatted is people make the phone call, they lie to the police, and the cops say, we're going to do a sweep just in case. We have, I have other properties that have been swatted. And I've not said this before, but tenants, not me, I don't live there, of a property I own have been swatted. Fortunately, they've not been there when they've occurred. But this is insane. We've had, a dozen officers with rifles coming, but at this point, they all understand what's going on. When Kavanaugh was threatened by this guy who was actually trying to kill him, that night we received a credible threat, and I said, "Look, we live relatively close to Brett Kavanaugh. We do." I said relatively close, and so I said we have to take it seriously. The suspect has now been indicted. They say Nicholas Rosk was arrested outside of Kavanaugh's home in Maryland on June 8th. He now faces life in jail if convicted. And of course he will be. He confessed. Prosecutors say Rosk traveled from California to Kavanaugh's home in Chevy Chase, Maryland, with the intent of killing Kavanaugh. Not just that. He wanted to kidnap him. Rosk pulled up near the home in a taxi shortly after 1 a.m. on June 8th, carrying a suitcase with a gun and ammunition, a tactical chest rig with pepper spray, and a knife, a flashlight, a laser, a thermal monocular, and other burglary tools. I mean, this guy was ready to go. Federal officials have said Rosk said he purchased the gun to kill Kavanaugh and also planned to kill himself. He was arrested by police in Montgomery County, Maryland, after he called 911 and told police he was near Kavanaugh's home and wanted to take his own life. Rosk faces life in prison. Just an hour before, the suspect flew into D.C. from California, taking a taxi directly to the conservative jurist's home. Wow. Just an hour before. He soon backed off the plan, however, putting a call into cops at roughly 1:40 a.m. that saw him confess his desire to kill the judge as well as himself and asked for psychiatric help. That's crazy. We're lucky this guy had that moment of clarity. Officers promptly arrested Rosk outside the residence, finding him with a disturbing arsenal of weapons. He told cops he purchased the equipment for the purpose of breaking into the residence and killing the justice as well as himself. Rosk told police he was upset by a leaked draft opinion. So let's make this very clear. Ruth sent us, the activist organization that helped people find this place, helped people find this home, holds the same ideology as this guy. This guy was motivated by their protest, by their claims and what they wanted. And he took to the next level. Now, the police are still refusing to enforce the law. This is the scariest thing to me. We talked about a poll last night with Dennis Prager. Another poll has come out showing that half this country believes a civil war is coming. I don't know when, but within our lifetimes. How could you assume anything else? Maybe the older generation isn't paying attention. And they don't know because they don't follow the news. But right now, when you see that the federal government will not enforce the law, they'll send a dozen agents to look at a garage pull rope, but they won't enforce the law against these activists who are breaking the law, who are committing federal crimes. Well, then it stands to reason we are dangerously close to some kind of civil war, because what precipitated the initial civil war, the first civil war in 1861, was that the law was not being followed by half the country. There was a moral divide. Slavery. Today it's abortion. But also many other issues. You had in the 1860s, people like John Brown walking up to a slave owner and blasting him in the face, killing him. Today, you have the pro-abortion group setting fire to these organizations and threatening people with an escalation of terrorism. Now, maybe we're not at that point where someone's going to walk up to someone and shoot him in the face. But I think we could be. More importantly, we're at the point where in the 1860s, the South said the North is not adhering to the law, and because they aren't, we do not feel that there is a union at all anyway. If the left is committing acts of terrorism, blatantly violating the law. And the federal government, DOJ, says we encourage more of this. And I think it's fair to say we're reaching that point where people are going to lose confidence. They're going to say there's no system. You just have one political faction in a civil war who's claiming to represent law enforcement, but not actually doing it. In which case, eventually, the right may view federal law enforcement as just partisan actors of Antifa or the Democratic Party. And then what are you going to do? If Antifa comes to your house, I mean literal Antifa in black masks and bangs on the door and says, get outside and get on the ground, you're going to do it? What happens when people say there is no longer law enforcement? This is where we're at, my friends. But hopefully things get better after the midterms. I'm not entirely sure they will. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.